Hi and welcome everyone to a new live stream. And today I have the pleasure to explore with you a new library by musical sampling, and it's called Medusa, and it's a pretty awesome drum set, a drum ensemble library. I don't know really how to call it. It's just awesome because the sounds really rock, and I will just hop right into the main screen here. And let me open that window up again. Please stay on top here. And let me just play you a few of the sounds, and then we hop into a little track I was writing by using the library. So the sounds are basically just lined up as a traditional drum set, so to say. So you have clacks, the clacks below here, bass drums. So it's obviously several bass drums recorded. Snare drums. Toms. And you also have the typical other instruments like hi-hats. Get some rim clicks. Rim hits from the snares above here. We just use. Oh, I am always forgetting that there is a fairly big window here, so I don't want to cover anything behind my cozy studio place. And cymbals. Right, and also you have another set of hi-hat above here. And what is also cool, just in case if you want to come up with a quick groove, you got some 8-note cymbals, hi-hat patterns up here. And as you can already hear, when I move the mod wheel, you can so you got another one on the next C. Which you can also automate with a mod wheel. And another one above here. And they all end up with several, let's say, stages of intensity. So this is a pretty open hi-hat. And above there, on the different notes, D, E, F, G, and so on, you have the dynamics, not controllable with a mod wheel, but spread upon the keyboard. And the same above here on these octaves. So this is basically the library. What I really like about it, because it doesn't just sound like a typical drum set. Of course, you could use it like this. You know, like just if you want to. Oh. Well, I'm pretty happy I hit the 1 after. But it's pretty massive, and the how I used this library in the track. We will go through the other features in a bit, but let me just first show you the track I wrote, and to give you a little bit of a better overview, let's just switch to show data tracks only. So, and let me just play you the track, and then we just talk about what I did and how I did it and why and so on. So that's a track. I was just raising my finger at the end because we will go through the rest of the library now. Let me just maybe show you what I did for the drums particularly. And because there is a lot to show for the drums, because it's not just this main mix and the main drum set. There is also an auxiliary mix, which is probably, you know, to be honest, I didn't read the manual again, but it's probably some alternative mix. And there is also a complete section of sound design with some more patches here, but we will go through that later. Let me just quickly let me just quickly pay you for being the session drummer here. So no, let me just play you the drums isolated, and let me just, you know, combine this for a moment so I can just open it so you can follow along. Yeah, right. Thanks. Fauzan Rahman. I'm not really sure if I pronounced that right, but thanks for the following. Okay, let me just play you the drums here. Just try to make it as big as possible. Let me just, yes, so this should work like that. Oh, what the heck? Just make it a little bit more. Okay, I think that should be good to see. Yeah, that's the deal with the drum. Sorry about the middle. I was just distracted, and but the groove is pretty similar throughout this throughout this middle part. Let me just check this once. Let me just go through it. So one thing which is pretty essential to me, I know this pattern in general is pretty, let's say, repetitive, but sometimes you just have to keep the groove. But if I have to keep the groove, I will make sure that, and I see there's a problem with a lot of tracks you experiencing, you know, day in, day out when you just listen to whatever, YouTube, SoundCloud, or just Spotify, that some parts always seem to be the same, and I just don't want to simply copying and pasting parts. But if I want to keep the steady groove, that there is something happening at least every 2, 4, or 8 bars. So in this case, it's 8 bars. So let me just solo that thing here. So there's actually something happening here. So this is always, of course, let's just make this a little bit bigger. This is one, let's say, one pattern here. So this is just the typical dotted note hits here. And there's another one. There's just one tiny hit going on here on the last 16th. But I think it's just, let me just make it 16th grid. So, but I think it adds a little bit to the, you know, liveliness of a track. And then again, at the very end of this track, I just, you know, put a little bit of a of a little bit more busy pattern. So you basically keep, because I mean, when you listen to drummers playing, they always play, of course, a steady groove. A good drummer plays a steady groove, and but at the end, there's always a little bit of variation going on, and of course, it brings a little bit more. It brings the track a little bit more alive when there is a little bit of variation going on, especially at the very end of a phrase. Because imagine I would talk like this. Every sentence would end like this. And then we talked about the next topic. So this, you want to make it musically interesting, and you are used to how people talk. And when somebody talks and explains something, so you always end the phrase in a different way. And you also do it. I'm not into a language psychology or whatever, but there is obviously the most logical reasons when you ask a question or when you answer something. But you want to apply that to music. That's what I basically want to say. And yes, so this is very important. On a side note, there is a really funny story. When I was studying music on the Los Angeles Music Academy back then in 1989, 1998, 97, and so it's actually like 300 years ago. It was really funny, but I really want to talk about this, because there was such a funny happening that one drum teacher back then had his entire class. So I was sometimes sneaking into drum classes and just watching the drummers play, because I'm inside myself. I'm a drummer who just, in a wrong sense, learned guitar, but I think in my heart, I'm kind of a percussion guy. And, but I still suck at playing. So whatever. But in this class, it was funny because they had session musicians, like a guitar player and a bass player, and they played a steady groove. And the drummers should accompany the guys by just playing a steady groove too. And everybody was like going like... so doing all kinds of fills and everything. And he said he just kicked out the first guys like after the first few seconds, and he said, just next guy coming up, don't play any breaks. And you really don't want to believe how hard it is. It is actually as someone saying, try to talk as long as you can without making an error, like a mispronunciation or anything. And everybody just fucked it up because nobody was able to just play. You're always tempted to do something different towards the end. However, since we are, when it comes to samples, there's an entirely different thing, because we have, let's say, not dead recordings, but we have recordings which we reuse, and it always helps a little bit. But of course, also it depends on the track. So I'm flying along. Let me just go through some of the other features here. You can change the groove speed to half and double. So let's say for whatever reason you started working on a track with tempo 200 because you count double time 1 2 3 4 1 2 3 4 1 2 3 4 whatever. But the track sort of is in tempo 100. So it always makes a little bit of sense when you use these patterns up here. Right now it sounds a little bit weird when changing. We have tempo 120. Yes, so we change it to basically 60 when I say groove speed is half. So this sounds a little bit wrong. And also when you go to double time. But it makes sense. As I said, when you work on a track with tempo 200, you started working. It sometimes happens that you think the feeling is right. And then suddenly in the middle, you realize, well, basically I should have recorded in tempo 100. And then you change the tempo and everything. It's just, spread upon your arrangement window. So it makes sense to simply go half time instead of fooling around with all these settings above here, or, starting to rearrange the track and change the tempo. Also, you have a little bit of humanization going on. So I turned it off for a second, but if you just play this, So it just makes sense when I play back the track, because there is some micro stuff going on that you have some, you know, let's say, humanization going on that so you hear it definitely here. Now you have a tight drum set. And loose is really like almost wrong, but natural sounds really great. I should have done, you know, rendered the demo with just a natural setting, but then again, I also like it tight. So another thing which is pretty cool, you have different microphone presets or mixes in general. So I use the Gorgon one, but there is also Hermes. Let me just check this quickly out. Just mute the microphone for a second again. So that was Gorgon. That was Hermes. Now we have Centaur. Then we have Zeus. And Gorgon again. I used Gorgon because I really liked, because it's really punchy. Okay, and that's it for this set. We can actually, you could also individually change these things here, the microphone settings here. But what is important, as I always, you know, look forward, that I don't use that much effects when on the stuff I'm featuring here. But in this sense, I just put a little bit of stuff going on. I put a little bit of stuff on it, like a little bit of EQ and this compressor here. Let me just play it without. And with. So I added a tad of compression, and also the mix is somewhat 70%, so it's not really 100% compressed, but it's just using it as a little bit of a, you know, split mix here. And yes, compression, and also a little bit of, you know, adding a little bit of 1.7 dB on 12K, so it just stings a little when you listen to it on the final part here, and I turn it off and on. So you can hear that the snare drum is a little bit more present, and also that it cuts through a little bit more through the mix because of adding this almost 2 or 1.5 whatever dB on the 12K here. And that's basically everything I did. I mean, there's also some stuff happening on the master bus. Yes, I question what makes this library special versus, let's say, Superior Drummer 2. So first of all, it makes it special because it has been recorded by musical sampling, and they completely have a different approach on drums as Superior Drummer 2 as the 2-track guys. And the other thing is, as you can hear, it's more of an ensemble library. It's not a drum library in the sense. Of course, it's from the Boutique Drums series, and Musical Sampler has also released a lot of other sample libraries, drum sample libraries. I also demo, but there is it's just several drums, so it feels like as at least 3 people were hitting the snare drums. So it's not just a snare drum, it's an ensemble. Let me just turn that off again. I mean, I could be wrong, and it's just one guy using flams or what. But it's definitely several hits. But again, prove me wrong. So, and the thing is, so basically, in a sense, yeah, it's ×3, whatever. So it's more like an. I see it more like an ensemble library. It's a mix of, let's say, not just an entire trailer music percussion library where you can quickly and pretty cool sounding percussion phrases, but it's also in a sense a drum set. Of course you could play some track like it sounds pretty cool, but if you listen again to like a traditional drum set, it sounds completely different. I mean, I don't want to make real comparisons to say which libraries. Let's just quickly load another library, and I just do it to give you guys an idea of where is it? Where is my here? So this is just a library aimed towards. Okay, so you get the difference. Even if I put it to the in-your-face mix, which I really like, and the drums, the snare drum especially is, but it's single hits. Okay, so we got this here, and again, I'm not here to compare these libraries and saying which one is better or not, but this is definitely not in my. I would never. I would, let's say, I would use it in a traditional sense, but not when it has to be really precise. I would use a different library, but I would use it for both. Let's say I would layer it with a let's say precise sounding drum library, but also in the back to have a little bit more of a massive background. But you can use it as like a, you know, so more in a, let's say, a trailer or epic, in a more epical sense, so to say. Hey Pop, how are you? Thanks for being here. So I just want to go through a few other sounds, and I just try to sort them a little bit here, because there is a lot more what this library has to offer, and this is the cool stuff. So there is also a patch which is called Concussion, and there you have. I'm doing that with the mod wheel, by the way. Oh, I just have to take care of this. Hey Dirk, how are you? Good to see you. How are you? Let me just mute my microphone a little bit. Okay, so there's some really awesome stuff happening here, and this is just processed, probably the processed drums, sound design drums, and let me just switch back to the files menu because we need that now. And what I also used, especially for this library, oh, you got it too. Yeah, pretty cool stuff. I was about to say. So you also get, I used also different things here. There's also, let's go through the patches I used for the demo. I also used these Chugging celli here. Where do I put it? Like here. In this part. Sorry, I just quickly tried something. This is... So you can hear in the end part, I was just moving the mod wheel. So you have some Chugging celli. I mean, it's a pretty useful patch here for doing some bass stuff or... Just there to add a little bit of stuff in that middle part here or towards the end by accompanying the bass notes. And then we also have... No, it's not 34. I think it's 119. But definitely worth, because I mean, if you would buy, 3 different drum libraries, it would add up a little bit more. And then you still wouldn't have the sound, because I mean, I know these guys and they probably took a lot of time to researching how to record this. And it feels to me, I could be totally wrong, but to me, it feels like having the similar approach of what Hans Zimmer back then did for Superman when recording, I think 9 or 10 pretty cool and awesome and famous drummers, and recorded like these very low hit tom drums and recorded them all together in one room. It kind of feels as if the musical sampling guys did something similar here. So there is also lo-fi pulse. You got some nice 8th note bass patch, and you add a little bit of lo-fi distortion when you move the mod wheel up. So I mean, pretty helpful when you have a drum library. Okay, so you can already come up with some cool stuff, and you can basically write an entire track with it, just the stuff which is on there. But we go through that one by one. There is another patch here. It's called the Minerva piano. Yeah, we get to that synth later. So this is kind of an interesting thing because it's like a mix of, I already mentioned that I like simple GUIs. Why is that? I don't know. So it has that pizzicato sound, but it's basically, it sounds also like a piano. Maybe it's both, I don't know. And I think I have to check back. I think I added that much. No, I didn't add any reverb. And sometimes I drown patches in Valhalla Shimmer. So I use this especially towards the end to accompany, to support the horns. Yeah, I used shimmer on the horns, but we get to that later because actually the horns are 2 from musical sampling. It's the trailer brass, just to quickly show that. But we will talk about this in a bit. Just want to go through the stuff of the library of Medusa. So you have one patch, the starters. This is and it's I just have to, it's working differently here. So you have to pick the sounds from below here. These are all different sounds mapped to different notes. So basically, you basically have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 different sounds within that one patch. So it's just not one patch. Let's check out what I also used. Send in the drones. Actually, I used the starters patch here by also using the pitch wheel. So it simply adds a little bit of that thing here. That's all. Let me just show you the used. So I just went down with a pitch wheel. Something like this. So to add a little bit of that. So you mean selecting multiple sounds at the same time when you are in a selective patch like this? Probably not, but because how would you do this, you know? But you can, I mean, just duplicate the track and use a different key switch, and that should do it. I mean, it just takes like a second or so. So I also did use send in the drones. Just have to make sure, because I think I didn't set the key switch. This is why I don't like key switches, by the way. I didn't set a key switch here, so I have to, when I play that track again, what is the sound I was using? Yeah, I used the first one on the C. So again, you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, many sounds for within just one patch. And so let's check out, because this is the last patch I was using. Let me just load this one here and just get rid of this. And let me just load. So the thing is not to confuse you. You have the ensembles. This is the main kit. You have another kind of mix. I assume it's a different. Let's just load it, whatever. Oh. I was completely wrong. So it's additional instruments. Yeah, this is also always this moment when you just, you know, try to feature a library and, you know, I know this thing inside out, and then suddenly you load it and, oh, I didn't try this before, but I was so, let's say I was so flashed because of that main kit, you know, I was just dialing this up and instantly started writing. So, but let me just check the other, yes. You very much dislike key switches. Thank you. Yes, just quickly. I mean, if you work with key switches, of course you need less space. You need less. You have less chaos in your template. But I always find it confusing because you have to use catch up with previous, whatever key switches or the MIDI command. You can set like a MIDI command here, so it says you're chasing notes. But I don't like this because also when you start playing something in the middle or in the 2 end, you hear a loop starting at the 1 because it catches up that note. It makes sense when you use it for key switches and when you don't use loops, synth, or whatever you or something you program inside the GUI or inside a different library or inside the library GUI, and you use it just as a, let's say you use the DAW, Cubase or Studio One or whatever, just as a container to trigger one note for that loop. It becomes a little bit difficult when using key switches. Also, if you just, accidentally just activate or select all notes from a patch and just transpose it a whole step up or anything. Well, let me just close Steam for a second because I'm getting notifications here. And you use, you transpose that track up like 2 or 3 halftones, and you don't take care of the key switch. You also move the key switch, and it entirely changes the articulation. So this is, this is my contribution about hating key switches. Okay, now back to the library. Let's go through these patches here one by one. So as I said before, you got the ensemble patches here, this auxiliary, the additional instruments, the main kit, and also the sound design folder. Inside this sound design folder, you'll find these following things. So there's a pad in here, above this pad. Let me just... Very aggressive. I think this could be something very cool when you have something disturbing going on, because I was really flashed by, for example, the Chernobyl score, which was really cool. So if you have filters going on, play with filters a lot and use sounds like these, you can get not pretty close to the to the Chernobyl soundtrack, but the vibe in general. So bass, lo-fi arp, I think I used that in my demo. So you already heard this. The next patch is really awesome because Battlecry, you guessed it. You stop, go, win, you stop, win, yeah, rock, run, kill, what, rise, oh, who. I mean, this is pretty cool to have, especially when you, I remember, I'm not, just want to, call names all the time, but I remember another developer ages ago, like probably 10 years ago, did something in a way like this, like having these War Cries. And they are always helpful when you work on fantasy scores and like Adventure, Lord of the Ring games or whatever. And you turn down these things really, make it really, in the background, and with a lot of reverb, you can get really great ghost sounding stuff done. You could also use it in a Blink 182-ish track, and just pretty cool stuff. Always good to have. There's another patch called Bottom Line. Hey Cabal Mine, thanks for following me. your subwoofers are still healthy. But this is pretty cool to have. So, I mean, this library is cool because it doesn't consist just of the drum library, because all kinds of what could be helpful to accompany the drums. So you have the chugging cello. Let me just play this again. And there is also, let me just, no, it was a different patch. We'll get to that. I confused it with a different one. Concussion hits, we already covered these. There is another one called Electroacoustic. Okay, so, and again you have the half-time and double-time patches here. Foundation bass. Also pretty helpful, the Freegate bass. Okay, the Minerva piano, we covered this. Send in the drones, we also remember that. The Turin pad. I mean, you could, you know, compose an entire science fiction soundtrack with it one patch. And so on. This is a pretty interesting patch, that GTR patch. When you hit higher velocities, you hear a ring out note. And when you hit lower, you get some kind of chugging. I'm doing that with the mod wheel right here. So let me just, oh yeah, you should see the mod wheel all right. And above here, I have to try out again what this was. Oh, right, this is... This is the normal chugging patch of a single note. And then the key switch above here is Where were we? Let me just trigger it with the mouse. So this is the power chords. Hitting too hard. Hey Rays, how are you? So the one key switch is basically the halftime of that chugging, halftime of power chords, then normal time and power chords, and the double time. It sounds a little bit funny when you accelerate it that fast, but I mean you probably wouldn't do this. Okay, there's another patch. I think there's something similar going on with the pulses. Where are we? Yeah, this is basically the halftime, full time, or halftime, normal time, double time spread out on the keyboard here. So this is the normal tempo. Yeah, Race, you're right. But the thing is, as I told before, it only makes sense. You never get this stretching sound, no matter what algorithm you use. But it's not about stretching it to halftime. When it comes to, I mean, as I explained before, when you have a track and you started writing this track in tempo 200 or something, and you just write, you know, you use like 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, but it's actually 1, 2, 3, 4. But you just started composing or working like this, and instead of when you just composed like 2 minutes already, and you came up with the idea, of course, I will work with these pulses, then, and you want to have some, no, not halftime, but the track itself feels like 100, but you started working in 200 because it feels better to see the notes, or you feel more comfortable by triggering or editing 8th notes instead of 16th note. It makes sense when you started with a higher tempo. And then, but when you would dial something in, the algorithm or the contact would detect that it's tempo 200, and then the normal tempo would be. So when you just played halftime, then you have the original tempo. So yeah, that's to explain a little bit. But I mean, technically, in general, at some point, stretched audio always becomes, unusable. And but that's basically the concept. Or when you do it the other way around, when you realize that you started working on track 60, but you just want to go to full time, and instead of messing around with the tempo of the track itself, you just hit this button, which just doesn't work. So what else do we have here? I think this is the same. Yeah. So these three, I should move this again a bit over here. These three are the same. So this is the normal tempo. But you can also already build some cool stuff with that. Of course, it sounds better when you hit the keys in timing. And so we also got another patch, which is probably the starters, but key switches. I think that was the one I was using above. So I think that was the one I used above. Yes, it definitely has a lot of variety. What I really like about the library is it doesn't want to be something, everything, but in a sense it is, but it just uses stuff which accompanies the drums in a perfect sense. And this is what I really like. This is why I really like the library, because it's not just a drum set, but when you say, oh, I quickly want some bass, oh, I don't have anything which fits this kit, you definitely find something on the library. I'm not saying that it just sounds, somewhat special or something unique, but it has been all done by the same guys, so they obviously know what, had in mind, what would fit very well. So also, let me just cover the other instruments of that track here, because I used some more musical sampling stuff, and which is the trailer strings, actually. So let me just play you the strings. I just split up the same patch to high and low, but what I really like about the trailer strings, it's that you can control it with a mod wheel. And when you hit the full key, you have some sort of another staccato. So as you can see in the patch here, it's split between spiccato and staccato. And you can come up with some pretty cool stuff. I used it in a pretty basic way. Let me just play you the part here, both parts. And so on. But I just have to check what I did on the... Actually, there are two reverbs going on. One is the RC48 here. So this is how that library sounds. We just play that pattern here. That could be enough, but I wanted it a little bit more epic. So I used a bit of Valhalla room. So if you're curious, let's just mute this one too. So I felt the RC48 just adds a little bit more depth, not just reverb, but more depth to the signal in general. So I used them both. Why not? Why not using two reverbs? And there is nothing going on this track here. So let's, it's just a pretty simple. But that's what I really like about the library. It can sound pretty massive right out of the pocket. That's why it's probably called trailer strings. And let's go also a little bit about the brass patch, because I also used the trailer brass here. There is the horde patch. I just had to use this because I think if I would write another demo for musical sampling, I would always put this patch in there because it just sounds so awesome. Okay, I also used the trombones here on the end. Let me play you that solo. So this is what I also really like. It sounds massive out of the pocket, and you can just... Yeah, wholly low end. That fits it very well. And also the 10 horns. I use these. Oh, I have to add that I used a lot of reverb on this one because I really wanted to fly. So I used, what did I use? I used the entire, why not? Why? I don't know really. I just pulled it off and thought, yeah, it sounds good. Just add a little bit of, 3 dB to the signal. And I used shimmer. Here I used shimmer. Yeah, out of the pocket, this library sounds pretty awesome. But as I said, I just wanted to have, especially in the last part, I just wanted to have the it above the trombones, not just sound-wise, I mean note value-wise, but also sound-wise, that it's just floating on top while the trombones stay a little bit down to earth. It's a decent patch. So what else do we have here? That's what I used. That's everything I used from Medusa, and additionally the trailer strings, the trailer brass. Let's hop over, and I'm just answering that question right now. What I used, the synth from the middle part. I think you mean this one. This is Hive. It's just a pretty... I don't know if I just... Whoops, we are here. I feel it kind of adds a little bit of... It's also funny how it churns a little bit. So the other parts are basically, there is some nexus in here. It's also a bass patch. Just add some pulls. You can't really hear it actually, but if I take it away, it almost sounds a little bit too empty. Yeah, right. I really like doing this, usually if I would have like a week or 2 weeks more, I would just add stuff, and this track is pretty packed actually, but I really like sneaking in all these little things. You can't really hear, but when you just mute the button, it's gone, and you wonder what happened. But there's a little bit of a supporting bass patch here. pretty cool stuff. I really love Hive. I mean, it's like some of these that's kind of a a synth which really sounds very unique, but always adds a specific something to a track I don't find anywhere else. Also, as for the beginning of this track, I used some Repro 1. I think it's just a preset, but I like how it just goes off pitch. So you also don't hear it, but it always hits a little bit with some. Yeah, Diva is also awesome. I mean, basically everything from by Yuhi is pretty awesome. I really like the company. And yeah, also speaking of that, I also used Repro 5 on the end. I think it's some really aggressive bass, basically. So the entire synth section would sound like this. Well, the Minerva piano isn't a synth, obviously, but so this for that. And in the end, we just used the choir I always use. Just quickly want to feature that. This is Storm Choir Ultimate, and it sounds really just great out of the pocket. Just trying to get it all on screen here successfully. Yes. So it's just that little part, and I just did compression. It's basically what I always do when I do choirs, is adding some decent compression. A lot of EQ. There's almost too much on the high frequencies, and getting rid of a decent amount of. Where did I do that? I didn't do this. Just did I do it with the internal EQ? Oh yes, I knew that something was. There is always a pretty decent part of around 1K with a very broad setting. I got rid of, and also the low, so it's really just that high, almost a little bit too cranked up choirs, but. When you just play it naturally in that track, yeah, you should know how to use Cubase. Let me just try to bypass it all. Let me just play it. So it sounds pretty harsh, and actually in the beginning, when I played it without everything, it sounded very, kind of almost dull. But if you just played with the entire track, yes, the entire track. Let me bypass it all. I mean, it's there, it's kind of there, but it could be there a little bit better. So, let me just save that. I don't know why makes me feel better. And yeah, that's for the entire track. That's for the entire library. We could do some additional stuff. And I thought about something we could still do. So if you still have some time, yeah. Yes, to be honest, I never had the chance to check out Oceania. I mean, I heard it, I know it. It's pretty awesome. But yeah, regarding the price, I think, I mean, from a professional sense, of course, if you are a hobby guy and you are having to check your money you have at the end of the month, and if you can afford something, it makes a lot of sense to check the price. But I also know professionals who are like, it's so expensive. But to be honest, I mean, if you use a choir and you really love working with it and you love the results, this money should be back in pretty quickly because it makes you work more efficiently, you know? So that's why I think, and to be honest, I remember the time when an entire orchestral cube was like 10,000 or even more euros. And I also remember the time when East West released their first platinum library, the orchestral symphonic orchestra, and it was like, I think, I don't know, $6,000 or something. I don't remember exactly, but it was a lot of money. So you guys are way too spoiled. No, I'm sorry to have to say that, but I mean, even if you had some phobia back then, it was like 1,200 euros, and but it was so helpful. You were able to compose awesome stuff out of the pocket real quick without paying attention to individual, ensembles and stuff like this. And I mean, some tracks don't need all this diving into individual ensembles, taking care of the violins and the violas and the cellos and all these things. Sometimes it's just great to have a string carpet because you use it for some sound designish stuff anyway, which you can hear in a backing track when it comes to a space game, and there's like a dialogue scene and you just use some synth, but you also add it up with strings, and you don't want to spend the time and set up all these individual ensembles. So probably Symphobia was the first library of its kind, which sort of revolutionized the ensemble patches back then. And I still use it because it's simply an awesome library, and the Project Sam guys obviously know what they're doing. So yeah, we went through a lot of stuff here. So I had just one little idea because I still have some time, and it was the following, not just the typical composing stuff or anything, but with drums, especially when it comes to drums, to talk a little bit about something which is highly underrated in my opinion. They always say melody is king, and of course, melody drives the track and everything. But I think melody would be nothing without rhythm. And I mean, of course, when you have, it's also a pitch going on in a percussion instrument. But when I knock on the table or, on my head or whatever, of course, there's a pitch going on, but it's not really like a note. You can say my head sounds like B flat or something. But I mean, music would be nothing without rhythm. So we could talk a little bit about how to come up with some ideas which go into the little bit of the direction of odd meter stuff, because there are so many people talking about sophisticated melodies and how to, come up with a decent orchestra and a decent arrangement and everything. But there is way too less stuff happening when it comes to odd meter stuff or non-4/4 music. And I just wanted to show you guys, just if you're interested a little bit, with just a simple concept of how to come up with something which is a little bit more odd in the sense of the rhythm. So you get some inspiration when working outside of 4/4, but not really outside of 4/4. So let me show you what I mean. So let me just okay, I just had to count and see if this works all right. So how much is what right now? You're talking of Medusa, I think. Yeah, as Dirk mentioned it earlier, it's like 119 intro. Let's just check the musical sampling website for a second and check it out. I mean, this is the beauty of the internet, that we can just go somewhere. Yeah, it's 119 intro. Well, as I said in the beginning, I mean, it's totally worth the money, because I mean, even if it would be just the set alone, I mean, it's very awesome recorded. It's really versatile as to use as a traditional drum set, but also as an ensemble patch for, you know, to build epic percussion loops. And as you can hear in the demo, I mean, to be honest, the only two percussion tracks, that's what I wanted to show earlier. The only two percussion tracks I was using is that Concussion patch and the Medusa main kit. So this is the track without. Let's play the end part just. So let me put the percussions back on. So this is basically all I needed. All I needed was Medusa. No, just, yeah. But that's true. I mean, it's just the Medusa patch, and it just does all the epic percussion going on. So imagine if I would throw in different stuff and mix it up. So there's a lot of, it has balls, so to say. And to be honest, I don't know about Taiko Creator. Did I mention that? I didn't mention this. How good is the NKS for parameters? I rely on those when it comes to be honest, I can't tell you anything about Taiko Creator. I never used it. I think I know what, oh, someone else in the chat did. Yeah, I just have to read that up. But, oh, here, yeah. Yeah, but I mean, you know, I want to, in a sense, you know, did this video for the musical sampling guys and featuring Medusa. So it's not really that fair to just, you know, go in and just talk about other libraries being on sale or whatever. I mean, of course, I mean, you can do everything you want here. I won't kick you out or anything, but I just want to, you know, focus a little bit on this kid. And but to be honest, I never, no worries. But yeah, just keep it a little bit with a set here, with the samples. So yeah, so if you would be up for it, I would just spend a little time talking about this and how you could get some little, oh, I don't know. You mean that you can implement it to the complete package, that you can use it with Native Instruments Complete. Okay, to be really honest, I'm not a fan. I honestly have to say it. Maybe I'm too stupid. Maybe it's just my workflow. Maybe I'm more of a traditional guy when it comes to this. But I really don't get along with this concept of having all my stuff inside, because I don't even have the software installed, because I want to simply, when I record something and I want to move, you know, a fader, a controller like this, I want to record it, just some, you know, the stuff I just did here and nothing else. And I just want to send it, I just want to put MIDI to it. So I really can't answer, oh, okay, so that's why you're depending on it. So let me just, that changes, of course, everything. But let me just check the site, because I don't really know. It should be here in the settings, on the features. I'm not really sure. I don't see it anywhere right now, but I will definitely check out, I will definitely contact Aaron of Musical Sampling and ask him if it's NKS ready, and probably maybe they have something in the plans, but I'm not really sure if it will work out, but I could check this out and let you know if you want. So, yeah, I mean, I agree with you. The Contact UI is kind of terrible. To be honest, what I did was just, biting, let's say, so to say, biting in the apple and just setting up my template right away in the beginning, so I never have to care about reading anything on there. And yeah, but yes, it could be definitely improved. The GUI is not really the most friendly one in general. Yes, I know, that's what I mean. It's a software issue of the it's a software issue of Contact. I mean, that's why they could definitely improve it. They could definitely make the no, that's totally cool. I mean, I always talk openly about this because I have a hearing loss of like 70% on my right ear. So it's it's just, it's something that just kind of sucks, but it just doesn't keep me from writing music and doing music. But I totally hear you. I mean, if you really look at this, I mean, there is just like all these things. You also probably talk about the issue that you really can't, that it can't be accessed by the screen readers. But I will check that out. Maybe they change it. Maybe it's already NKS ready, and I just didn't find it on the. So let me just check again to the chat, because it feels appropriate to be a little bit closer to you guys when we just chat. And oh, sorry, yeah, I didn't talk about that. Let me just switch back to the main view. Thank you for reminding me. But again, I kind of, well, let me just use it that big. So again, what I used is, the first thing I always use is the dynamic spectrum mapper. So just in case you don't know what this is, it's basically multiband compression, but you can capture the sound of the track. So if I play back the track, I won't do it now because it will change the entire audio. But if I would capture or hit capture right now, it would capture what it already did here with that yellow line here. So it would just create kind of a band, an analysis of the entire frequencies of the track. And then you could just simply, play around with a threshold, with a ratio, gain, and it's basically a multiband compressor. So let's just, and this may sound weird right now, let's just bypass everything. So I'm also a little bit softer. I have to be a little bit louder. And let's just activate this one by one here. So it kind of glues together everything. The next step I did was using the drummer. Let me turn that on. Again, it's very subtle. It's just there to add a little bit of something going on. Then I am not ashamed of this, because I used a neutron on this. And let me turn that on. And as you can hear, when I talk, it's just introducing a little bit of a EQ curve. I turned off everything else. Do I still have the click on? I don't. Yeah. So I don't want to irritate. So as I said before, it always helps a little bit learning, so that you just hit the the track assistant and you just see, okay, I mean, usually you should hear that stuff. Usually I hear it and you do it, but sometimes I tweak these things and change them. But most of the time, it's a pretty cool tool to just help you with a mix, not just, taking away the mastering process for you, but just checking, it's basically like a spell correction. I mean, when you use something like, what is it called? Grammarly or something, you just write something and then you do a mistake and then you see that there's like a red line and you make it better the next time. And then, you know what you have to do on the track, and then you get an. So it's like basically like ear training suggestion settings, which you can make use of. Okay, so yes, if I would, let me just finish this mastering thing, and then we talk about how I would deliver stems for this. So the next part would be the invisible limiter here. And what I really like about the invisible limiter is that it sounds really awesome. I know a lot of limiters. I tried a lot of limiters, and when you crank this thing up, I mean, even with this setting, the track still sounds good, and I'm also louder, but but even with a setting up to like 7 dB or something, it still sounds great. It doesn't really distort. I didn't hear anything, but again, my ears may be tired from the day. But the beautiful thing is that you don't even have to crank up the track like this. You can use unity gain monitoring. You hear that the track somewhere starts distorting at like 10 dB, maybe a little bit earlier, but my rule of thumb is always, if it works, good, just set it back a little bit more and not, make it more, because it depends. I would also master this track on the next morning, because you have fresh ears, and then I would turn the speakers really soft, or the headphones, and then start mastering the track, because your ears are still, not worn out, because this can happen pretty fast. I mean, if you work all day, if I work on sub bass parts during a day, I mean, my head is like this, and it's really not good. It's also not good to wear headphones all the time, but I mean, I'm used to it. So basically the unity gain, I don't know if I mentioned it completely, you can switch that button, you can set it, and it stays on the same volume, so you can check out where it starts distorting. So probably around here, and then you could release this, and then the track would be much louder as it is. But it happens a lot of times that when you master a track, and you have this, and you crank it up, and then you have both of these things happening. The volume raise will happen, and also the distortion raise will happen. And if it happens at the same time, it sometimes is a little bit distracting. So you can just set this unity gain monitoring on, and quickly make out where it starts distorting, and then simply hit this button here, and everything is cool. The last thing I did was the Inflator. This thing is probably on all of my tracks since I got it, and this was a very long time ago. I think back then I even got the TC Electronic. I don't even know the name of the card. It was like the alternative version of the UAD. I forgot the name. I had so much trouble with that. I even bought this card to have the Inflator and the virus plugin. So the beauty of this thing is that when you use it, as you can see the chain here, I hope you can see that all right, that I have this dynamic spectrum mapper here. Then I have another, basically another multiband compressor going on. Then I have the neutron doing some kind of correction. You could set this before the compressor. I don't care. I mean, you have to decide if you put, you know, the salt before the final stirring of your meal or in the afterwards, if you, or the, you know, your spice of choice. It always, I mean, there's a lot of discussion going on. Should you use the EQ before the compressor or after? I mean, just fucking listen to it and just use what you like most. You know, it's not like chemicals. You don't put together stuff and you suddenly develop kind of a neutron bomb or atomic bomb and nothing explodes, or you get resolved into particles or something like this. So it's just like a matter what you like more. Do you want to correct a signal, or just, you know, add a little bit of more high frequency, or get rid of the middle frequencies and compress that? Or do you like to compress the basic thing and just, you know, raise the frequencies or lower frequencies of that compressed signal? So it's totally up to you. But the inflator is always a good choice to use after the limiter, not before this. Of course, you could use it on whatever you want, drum sets, vocals, whatever. But I found the best use of it using it after, behind the limiter, because it adds a little bit of extra power. Yeah, so that's basically the entire track. Yeah, so that's, the entire track, the entire mastering chain. And yeah, just in case you have any questions, I think we should talk about this odd meter concept and everything, maybe in a completely dedicated video, maybe tomorrow evening. I'm not sure. I will let you guys know, just in case if you don't have any questions left. Yes, thank you. Stem delivery. So this is very important. It depends. Sometimes you have stem delivery. When I deliver stems, for example, to Epic Score, they will get the stems and fully mix and master the track. So they don't need mastered stems. I will send over each of my instruments and they mix the track and master the track, because so everything stays in the typical Epic Score sound the company represents. So, but if I use, and I just probably change back to the main view. So let me just open the mixer. So if I would use, you can see, let me just make this a little bigger. So as you can see, the mixer here is divided into my main setup. What you can see, I was just about to point with a finger on my monitor. So you can see this is the main setup here from the mixer. And there is this category here which doesn't move. So these are all my, no, I don't want any colors right now. So if I would use stems or ready mastered stems to accompany, I would just put all of these effects on each of these tracks here on the bus and nothing on the master. And just to make sure that every track is, I mean, this is what you have to decide. I would just go and turn these all that low that it doesn't clip on the stereo out without limiter. So you have absolutely nothing which changes the sound again coming from all, you know, the buses to the main stereo out. I'm not really sure if I would put all these exactly in this order, but I would make sure that at least the strings, the brass, and the drums, or the ethnic percussions, or the movie percussions as I call them, are decently compressed, and that everything else is limited, at least limited. So this would be my stem delivery. As I said, it always it depends when a producer or a client or a licensed sample company, trailer house asks for stems. You should always make sure, if it's like, final stems, mastered stems available for sale, or if it's that they can master or mix it in-house. Hope that answers your question. Yeah, my new PC. So we already are on my new machine here. I didn't do any stress tests, to be honest. But I'm already, let me just check the studio setup. So I didn't change anything. As you can see, I'm on an input latency of 4.1% milliseconds. So I'm working at 128 samples. And to be honest, this is really refreshing because I'm a guy who already always had to work with 512 2024. And I mean, that track is mastered. It's not really, there is not a lot of stuff going on, but there is some effects in there. There is a lot of stuff going on, especially on the, let me just see the voice count. I mean, it shouldn't be that high, this part here. So it moves up to like 60 max. But I mean, that's just one instrument. Of course, there's not a lot of happening here. But when I was working on busy tracks with fast notes, I didn't see anything happening. So what I wanted to say, I always had to work with 512 to 1024 buffer setting, which was like a latency of 24, 48 something milliseconds. And this makes it really hard. Yeah, that's very important, the games I play. But that makes it pretty hard to play in real time. So when you imagine you had like 20 milliseconds. So you just record something, and when you record this with a high latency, you just... Well, it's just... So when you check this part, I mean, I'm not the best player when it comes to keyboards and also to timing, but you can see I was pretty... I could just probably go in and just move it a tiny little bit, and then I'm totally... It stays on point, And this was pretty difficult before when I was working with orchestral instruments and stuff like this, similar stuff. And you were just playing some little bit complex parts, and you always go in there. And it was just like, let me just recreate this part. And it was like here, because it was so confusing. And then when you have like lots of 16th notes, at some point you drift off in tempo because you hear the, how to describe this? You hear the latency going on all the time. And this adds up to your playing. So I always get, at the end of the part, just to exaggerate it a little bit, it always ends up like, something like this. I'm exaggerating here, okay? But it would just, kind of expand towards the end because the delay you're hearing, and you just don't stick to the click itself, but you always hear the instruments which delay more and more, because when you hear to the instruments, it's like a feedback, which totally gets you out of your concept. And then, so this is really a good addition. It was totally worth the money of investing in the new machine, and I don't have to take care about RAM problems anymore because I have 128 gigs in my machine. And my current template is around at 50, 55 something. I'm still not done, but I also don't have the tracks all active. I'm not really sure if let me just show you all the tracks here. So if I open let's say the Berlin strings folder, the entire folder is deactivated. So if I save this track, 1, 2, 3, around needs like 2 to 3 seconds until the track is saved, and the opening of the template probably takes like 5 seconds. But at the end of the track, you use more and more and more, and I simply want you know, I simply want to have as much memory available. But to be honest, I will never get past the 128 gigs. I'm not that guy having like a template of 3,000 or 5,000 tracks and, you know, working with 100 or 200 tracks or something. Yes. How is it possible that I'm running on 32 samples just on Wasabi? 128 sounded like a huge number. Yeah, I mean, technically I could run on like samples of 64 or 32 by just playing a guitar, but the question is, it adds up the more instruments you use. So were you working on 32 samples when you had a full orchestra going, or maybe like a percussion section of 5 to 10 instruments at tempo 150 with using lots of 16th notes or anything? Because that would drastically change the situation and would introduce crackles and these little glitches you hear. Yeah. Yes, it always is. I mean, it really, when I really love layering all kinds of libraries. So when I layer spiccato strings, especially, and I have like 2 or 3 libraries, and I, you know, each of these have like something going on like this here. Is the end part. I mean, my previous machine, you can see right now probably that I have just 300, 100, let's say like 400 to 500 voices on just the strings alone. So imagine I have that doubled with, you know, Los Angeles scoring strings, which I really love still using. And also Nucleus, of course. If you layer that stuff up, you probably have like 1,000 or 1,200 voices just going for the strings. I mean, add some fast percussions to it and some flute runs, and you're completely out of business, at least with, you know, 32 or 40, 64 buffer settings. But I didn't experience any problems with being on 128. So just to say, I know that the core, that there are core issues, that currently Cubase uses up to I think 6 or 8 cores or something. But I feel, I mean, we could open let me just open this thing here and see how it behaves. So I stop it again, and to be honest, I see on all of these cores, I see a dropout. And when I just start it again, I mean, of course, we can see that the first core is used more and the third core is used more. But as I can see there, all of these cores are working. I mean, I'm either too stupid to let's say how to interpret this correctly, but I can see all the cores are working. So I'm not really sure if there are really core issues going on. On the other hand, I'm still experimenting around with the let's bring that up, with the ASIO guard. On my previous machine, which was a 6-core 3.5 whatever, or 3.3, I had to turn off the ASIO guard because it was just messing up my tracks. And on that new machine, I have to turn it on so the performance is better. When I just bring up, let me just quickly bring that up so you can see the performance window here. So let's turn off the ASIO guard. I hope my machine doesn't. So as I can see right now, I didn't do this before. So I really learned something on my own video. I always do. But I'm just realizing that when I don't use the AU guard, you can see that some CPUs work more intense than others. But if I have the AU guard, so you can see that this is fairly distributed. And no, I didn't try the other. We could do that. I mean, we could do that and AU guard level high. Use the same for highest audio processing performance. This leads to increased AU guard latency and memory usage. I definitely don't want increased latency. So maybe low to the lowest level. So I just probably stick with that to normal because I don't want to have latency introduced even more because I still won't be able to play my instruments all right. I mean, even though I click in and program a lot, I just want to have like basic patterns, played by hand. I'm not a fan of just sitting there and clicking notes with a pencil. So that's basically for this track for my machine. What else is there to mention for the machine? I got it all. What's maybe important I also had this concept with my old machine, but I have 3 separated categories of drives. So the first one would be C, which would be the main system, which would be the software. Cubase, Studio One, I both work with these. And then the next drive would be the D drive. I entirely have this for sessions, for tracks, projects I'm working on. So nothing interferes with the software and the when I'm recording MIDI events or audio parts, whatever. And then there are, and then there are 2 other sample drives. The first drives are both 2 terabytes, and the first and the second, I just basically have 2 sample drives, and these have 4 terabytes each. And before that, I had 3 drives, which like 500 gigs or 1 terabyte or something. And this was basically, packed pretty quickly. I mean, especially with Junkie XL Brass recently released, which is like 300 gigs. And I still don't have the entire library installed, downloaded, but just the Alan Meyerson and Junkie XL mixes available. And I don't know how much it uses on my drive. So let me just check it. Orchestral tools. It's 149 gigabytes just for these microphone settings. So yeah, the machine was pretty packed pretty quickly. So I'm really happy with this. And I hope it serves me well for the next 7 to 8 years. This is the concept I'm working at, that I just invest into a fairly decent machine. It costs a little bit more. I can openly say this. The first one was probably 5.5K, 5,500, and this one was 6.4. But I hope that it just lasts for like 8 years. And I'm not a fan of buying cheap stuff because the i9, I mean, if I look back on my old machine, it works fine. It totally works fine. I could have probably used it 2 or 3 more years. But, I don't want to be limited by technology. So that's why every 7 to 8 years, I just look forward to buy a new machine. So I don't have to deal with stuff in between. The only thing I have to take care of sometimes is the drives and the graphic card. Because yes, I'm a gamer. And by the way, my current game I'm playing is Apex Legends. And what else do I play? Like the typical Battlegrounds, the PUBG or Player Unknown's Battlegrounds. So I'm currently sticking with these 2 if I have time. So just to answer the question of what games do I play? Hey, Thomas, good to see you. We're still here. So let me just go to chat window. And yes. Yes, seriously, I suck at it too. I especially, it was really funny, just to mention this really quick, when I get into the game, it's like the second or third session I was playing with people, and then suddenly they started like, newbie, or you're a noob. And I was like, what do you want? I just purchased the games. Did you guys end up or started with level 50 or 100? So it was really kind of funny. Let me just read through the chat here a little bit, because last time I really realized that I skipped a lot of stuff. And so what else do we have? So, I mean, let's just try it. Let me just set the ASU guard to and see if I can still play with it. Let me just set it to high. Hopefully the machine doesn't crash. Let me just turn on the click and I try to be. So it works okay. Let me just see how I scored. Loser! Yeah, I mean, it's pretty decent. It's like a 30-second note. Sorry, like a 64th note, kind of. So it's kind of okay, but let's see how it behaves. Maybe a little bit better. Setting it to low. It definitely works more, but I think I leave it on the, on the normal settings here. And I'm still happy. I mean, recently there is like a funny little snippet of me just hitting, all the notes with the elbow on a Junkie XL patch loaded with lots of microphone settings, and I was just hitting probably around 1,000 voices, and the machine didn't do anything, so it seems to be rock solid. Yes, Mordhau, I heard of that. Yeah, I've seen the trailer. I wasn't really sure if I want to get into this. It must be frustrating. I think I played this other game like a long time ago. I forgot the name, which was like which introduced basically this kind of style. Yeah, chivalry, right. I tried that, and this was pretty funny, but I mean, I lost my arms quicker than I just entered the arena, so I'm not really sure if that's for me. Yeah, BBC Symphonic Orchestra. I don't have the library. No. Why? Why you mention it? Because it needs so much power? What do you mean? Oh, the size. Yes. Yeah, it's pretty intense. I was about, thinking getting it, but then again, I was, reviewing that I have kind of so many orchestral libraries currently going on. And to be honest, I love Spitfire libraries, all the series of the Albion stuff. But it was funny because this afternoon I was watching the latest episode of Daniel James, and he just said that it has. I mean, I just remember this because he said that Spitfire has gone 0 days without announcing a string library. And this is, to be honest, what I feel sometimes when they have, You know, when there was like Studio Strings announced, then Studio Strings Professional, Symphonic Strings Professional, Soul Strings, then there was a new Albion, and in between there was a new update of the Albion. And don't get me wrong, I love all the libraries. The Albion sounds are pretty amazing. I still use them, of course, but it was just so confusing, and I would be just angry about buying something and then regretting buying it because there was something new coming out. And then there was the BBC orchestra going on, and I'm not really sure if there is anything coming afterwards. I mean, they announced probably Albion 6. I'm pretty sure that this will not compete with the BBC orchestra library, but I'm not really sure. You know, I don't see any reason like spending the money and getting it without being sure if there is something new coming along like the next 4 or 6 weeks. I mean, that's probably just, you know, exaggerating, but maybe like half a year or so. But yeah. So yeah, you can. That's what I really like about the Junkie XL brass. You can install the different microphone settings, and this is what I really love about. I mean, we could just get. I hope I'm just, you know. Let me just load this sign player. So I really hope that I should have get rid of all the beta stuff, so it should work 100% okay. But let me just load the 12 trombones, and just as I did in my demo, let's just load the sustains. Let me just load the Marcardo shorts and the staccattissimos. Oh, sorry, I have to set it all to the same. That's how I love working with a library, and that's why I like this library so much, because you can individually set up everything like you want. So let me just read. Yeah, right. Yeah, the Albion series are more focused. I mean, it's basically like the Metropolis stuff of orchestra tools. So it's kind of the, you know, the pendant, so to say. Yeah, but I mean, in generally, I can say that you that the more I mean, to be honest, I know the concept of microphone settings, and that they are pretty helpful. And let me just I just realized I just had the tree microphone on, so let me just add the room of all of these, and also the mid, all of these, say like the mid, mid and room. So once you really appreciate having that much, disregarding if it's like Junkie XL brass or the BBC Symphonic Orchestra, let me just turn the volume down because this is like really heavy. Oh. When you realize that you have hardware controllers you could use. Yeah, I think, to be honest, yeah, you have the perch button down here. Oh, let me just, I'm sorry, I'm still on the other, get used to the scenes, to the camera scenes. So you have a perch button down here. What is even more brilliant on this library is that I can just mix everything like I want. And I just can hit merge here. And what happens is that, as far as I understood, more samples will be created with these microphone settings as I just did right now. So as far as I got it, you have these three. If we stick for one articulation right now as the sustains, you will have all of these three microphone settings, like the mid, the tree, and the room combined to one, patch or sample pack you could always import and use. And so you could create your own microphone settings without loading, like, let's say 300 gigabytes into your PC, which is not possible, by the way, unless you have like 300 or 400 gigs, but just, making this up. But I mean, once you get all into this, once you have the option of all these different microphone settings, becomes vital or essential. And I think a lot of sample library developers will go that way of having way more microphone settings instead of just close mid far or something. Okay, so yes, so we explored a lot of stuff. I think I would call it a day for tonight, and I'm not really sure. I would probably come back tomorrow and talk a little bit about this, about a little bit of a concept when it comes to introducing some odd meter stuff, because I am, how do you say, a firm believer that there is more than just 4/4 you could do with your music. And I know a lot of people, will stick with 4/4 because it somehow has to be, commercial in a sense. But if you want to do something different, if you have the freedom to create music, it's also so refreshing, because a lot of music in general has been gone to that point where you just have like, 4-bar, 8-bar, 2-bar phrases. And there is nothing wrong if you do hip hop, if you do trance, if you do techno, you definitely EDM, whatever, you definitely, or even pop music, you definitely need this structured out music of verse and a chorus, because in the beginning we had chants, and we had kind of not saying that this was a general music style, but we had like drinking songs or marching songs or whatever, and then all these things. I mean, not that I like the marching stuff, or the purpose that you had to go, feel more safe in war, but I mean, it's it just followed that pattern, that it's repetitive, and this adds to the to the experience. If you go to a club and you want to listen to EDM, and it just has to go like. There is no way that you feel good by having something like. Yeah, go to a rock club and listen to Dream Theater or so if you're a fan of this, but this has nothing to do with, EDM or being. But in general, it feels great when you get off that grid, when you do orchestral music, when you do changes to the tempo track, when you automate the tempo track, introducing, fade ins, fade outs, or to put it better, like, program the tempo that you have a tempo track going, and, randomly make this track go faster and slower like a real orchestra does. It never stays exactly in timing. And if you hear like the old compositions, please forgive the blasphemy, but when you listen to compositions of the old masters, you always hear that there is a lot of accelerating and decelerating going on, and this adds to the experience too. So, yes, or Periphery or Haken, and yeah. So in generally, I think we just we already live for like 2 hours. I think let's call it a day for tonight, and maybe I will be online tomorrow. I will let you guys know. Maybe Wednesday, maybe. I don't know, maybe I will be here all week. As of course, when I got my work done, and let's cover some stuff. So just in case you're not part, just in case if you're listening, I usually greet like everyone new being on the channel here, but I should definitely find out where to see the users. Oh, here. So just in case, I see a lot of new faces here. So just in case, if you don't know about this, you can join my Discord channel. I will just try to, let me just move over here, go to some random YouTube video of mine, because I should copy the link. And let me just hope that works all right. So I'll just type it in here. And yeah, that's good to hear. You don't make anything wrong. If you get that library, I mean, that really, really adds up. It's a really refreshing approach. I mean, I have a lot of, percussion libraries. I always think that I miss something, that there is a percussion library I don't have, or I hear a sound and say, oh, I have to, find this. What is that sound? But this really adds up. I mean, this really goes along well. I know this already with all the other stuff I use. And as you can hear, it totally is enough to, bring the power for this entire track, because there are percussions, they sound great. You can use them, but there is a lack of, smack or a lack of power missing to make it a decent or epic percussion ensemble. And to create this stuff is not easy. So, but this library, Medusa, will definitely make it way more easy to come close to the really, epic percussion stuff. Yes, it was definitely an entertaining stream. It would be nothing without you guys, definitely. And so you can find the Discord link. I posted it in the chat. So just in case if you're curious, just hop over and you're heartily, warmly welcomed to my channel. There are also already I think 120 people on there. Something. The last that I counted, 21 guys are online right now. 105 are offline. So do the math. And yeah, it's a growing community. I didn't expect that it's growing that fast. So just drop by, I would be happy. And I would just say, have a great night wherever you are. Have a great day and see you soon. And thanks for watching. Bye.